Okay, so as always, we start on the header. We start in the header file, and here we're like write function prototype or display numbers that accepts an int and returns void. Okay, we'll skip that one for now, and let's do sum of squares. So sum of squares for 4. Sum of squares 4, and we accept some number. So we're going to tackle that same problem we did with while, but this time using a for loop. So we'll go here, and let me eliminate that IOStream. We will put it in the header. Okay. Let's make sure we eliminate semicolon there, open, close curly brace. And now we are tackling sum of squares. So we follow the template for loop. So we need the keyword for, we need to initialize something. So usually it's initialize some variable. So we'll say initialize I equals 0. So we initialize Boolean expression that will eventually stop the for loop. So here we can say I less than equal to num, and then the third piece is you increment or you decrement the counter. In this case, we want to increment the counter. So we say I plus plus, which means whatever value I has incremented by 1. Okay, that's what this means. If we wanted to decrement or say I is 1, we want to make it 0, then we would do minus minus. That's I equals I minus 1, but this is a shortcut for C++, right? So they're unary increment or decrement operators. In this case, we know we need this piece. And then we need sum, and we need to return that variable. And then here, it's just a matter of like writing the statement that increments or tallies the variable sum, right? So it's kind of like, okay, so we have I less than equal num, I plus plus. So we know we need something, right? So sum equals sum plus we can do I times I, right? Just the same exact thing we did for the while loop, but notice here the code is like more compact, mainly because we're handling everything in one line. In the for header, we initialize, and then we have a condition, and then an incrementer. All of these 3 statements here, they're going to take care of the for loop for us. Like notice down here, we do not need a statement that will eventually make this Boolean expression false. That falls to, the responsibility falls on I++, right? So let me see. And if we're not sure, we can always go to the test case, right? I think that should work. So let me go here. And I thought I whacked that piece. I guess it's still there. Okay, whatever. Let me see here. Go to 4. No, we go to test, src, no, test, examples, repetition, and then we go here. Always we want to make sure we include whatever new code we're going to test, right? So it's for.h. Then we have test case, test sum of squares with 4. And then we need the assertion, so we create one assertion, and then sum of, so notice right here the IntelliSense recognizes our new code, and then we can say, well, we know 3 should be 14, and let's run this piece, right, just to make sure that I have the correct code. So let's run in terminal, see what happens. It's doing everything from the beginning, so it's going to take a while for the compilation for this one. So the while loop, usually we don't know how many times it'll loop, right? Usually that's the case, we don't know. But for the for loop, you usually have a very good idea of how many times it'll loop. In this case, it'll loop like num, right? Num times. And if we're processing a list with like 100 records, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, it's going to go through 100 records. And the while loop kind of works the same thing, but it's not as obvious, like to determine how many times is it going to loop. And the while loop always checks if it can execute at least once. So the while loop may execute 0 or more times. And the for loop can also execute 0 or more times. So a while loop is a pre-test loop, meaning first I test, then I execute the code block. And the for loop does the same thing. And then when we go to do while, we'll see how that one works. So, okay, still building. I wonder if my code space got like reset, or maybe because I did those changes for the practice folder. In theory, I shouldn't have like to start from scratch, but I'm not sure. I don't know what they're doing with the code space data. I guess while this one's compiling, in Python, like you had the step, right? So this you can consider like the step in Python, like in range from X to Y. And then if you wanted to increment by something other than the value 1, then you would use the step value, and you could either increment by 2, 3, 4, 5, or decrement, by 2, 3, 4, 5. So the functionality is kind of like the same, but the syntax is different. %. Okay, while the compilation process is going on, any questions so far? I finished, right? But if you have questions, then please, you can ask. Okay, so thankfully our case is passed, right? So notice here, sum of squares equals 14, 14 equals 14. So this code is correct, and then we can be like, okay, let's go ahead and create one more assertion. Sum of squares 4, this one should be equal 30, but we need to make sure we do not forget to pass in the argument 4. Semicolon. Now the compilation process should be a lot faster. So we run in terminal. It should be pretty fast. Yeah, it was fast. Okay, so we're still good. So 6 assertions, everything's green, and then we go ahead and do one more. Another assertion, sum of squares 4, and we do with value 5, and we know that should be 55. And we can run it one more time. Again, very simple examples. It's just to show you how the loop works, right? So, okay, so that's that one, and now let's go and do one more. And this is the same example we did for the while loop, but using a for loop, right? We did sum of squares, and now we'll do display. So here we're saying write prototype for a function named display numbers that accepts. And okay, I guess we can do that one. Returns void, and then we say display numbers. And I guess we need one parameter. We go back to the implementation file, commonly known as CPP, and then here it's just a matter of, if we get display numbers with argument 5, we should display one number per line. Okay, so easy enough. Let me go up here and do using cout. We are using cout, and IOStream is right here. So now C++ will know what cout is. So we can say for auto I equals 0, I less than equal to num, and then increment plus plus cout I, but we want to start at value 1, so we'll say I plus 1 here. New line character. And that's all we do here. Very simple example, just showing repetition. How do we set up a for loop? Again, initialize, Boolean expression, increment or decrement. And we go here, run in terminal. Actually, not a test, right? So we have to go repetition, and there's no test case for this one, meaning we have to go to main. So we go to for, and we have to call that piece of code. So here we'll simply call display numbers with value 5, and we can run it. So we go here and let's run it again. Very simple example just to show us how this loop works. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, I do not need less than equal to, right? So I need to just say less than. So right here. And let's go and run it one more time. Okay, so down here we have values up to 5, right? So the last one here, number 5, not 6, right? So we're good. Questions here with using the for loop? Very simple examples here. Okay, so let me see here. How does a program know the for loop is working with ints? With auto, right? So the assignment here, this is what determines what the value is, right? And here, if we hover over I, then it's an integer, because 0 is part of the whole number system, right? But if we would use like 1.5, then it's a double, right? So the key here is auto and how we assign values to the initializer variable. So that's how it knows. There's nothing keeping us from explicitly saying int here. But if auto can help us determine variable types and data types, we're like, okay, you take care of it. I'll just be assigning values. Okay, and then we'll do one more example that we did with the while loop, and that was also a void, and it was a display, we'll say for, display with for, and we accept a string, so we'll say string, some string, and open close curly brace. So far, my program does not have any idea what string is. So again, string is part of the standard library, meaning we need some includes or configurations. So up here, we need to make sure we do include string. That's the first step. And the second step is to help C++ with namespace. So we can say using string. And now it knows what string is, right? Let me go here. Okay. So with the for loop, we want to iterate a string. And remember, string indexes start at 0 and they end at size -1. So we have a string with 5 characters, then its max index is 4. So if we go here, I'm pretty sure this was discussed in Python, but I'll still bring it up here. So let me see, 1337. It's just scratch pad. So so I'll create a new page, right? So if we have hello, I'm pretty sure I had written this little box diagram, right? Hello. And we have H-E-L-L-O, so the index is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is what the variable I will try to access. But then we have the size. And size is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I was saying that the max index will always be size -1. In this case, 5 - 1 equals 4, right? So that's why that value is 4. So knowing this, we should be able to use the for loop to help us iterate through that string and get each character and display it out to screen. So we say, okay, initialize. So again, we'll say I equals 0. And then while I less than the string size. And then we want to increment by 1. And then it's just a matter of cout. And how do we access a string? The same way you did in Python, you can use the subscript operators or open close bracket with value I, new line character. So as I is changing, we'll get like the first index, second index, third index, fourth index, and the last index. This should display the string to screen. No test case required. So we can go here and we can simply say display something. I'll say string lang equals Python. And I have to help namespace resolution, so I'll say using cout. You may be wondering why not cout. Sorry, string. Why we don't have to include string here. We don't have to do that because it's in 4.h, right? So let me go here. So include string 4.h. We're including 4.h here. So in essence, we're bringing in string. Let me see why this is complaining. Oh, because it's display _4, right? So display _4. That should make it happy. Or not. Let me see here. So let me go here. And the reason it's not recognizing that is I didn't put the header in H, right? So now we should recognize it. So we jump back to main and it knows what I'm talking about now. So let me run this program, run in terminal. Okay, let me see, string lang, display for string for header, void, oh, that's correct, let me see here, oh, string, namespace resolution, right? So first step is here, so we include the string, but I didn't help C++ with namespace resolution. I need to put stat, : which is the scope operator. And I think it should be happy now. So let's see, run in terminal. Okay, and Python at the bottom left, right here. It's a very simple example just to show you basic for loop usage, right? So again, we have initializer, condition, and then increment or decrementer. Meaning, do we always have to increment by 1? No, we can increment by 2, we can increment by 3, 4, 5, whatever the problem we're trying to solve calls for. In this case, it's just intro, so I'm sticking with the default value 1. Questions here? Okay, so no questions.